evening.
Good evening.
Hello, good evening.
So I see a few people that are the same as the one in Burmese, but some different people as well. So cool. So this will be the same class as in Burmese, but I'm just going to do it in English. So if you attended both, just so that you know. So today we're looking at evaluating sources, and we're looking specifically at primary sources. So this week we're going to look at primary sources. Next week we are going to look at secondary sources. So the objective for this lesson is that participants will be able to identify primary sources and explain how primary sources are used in research. So just a reminder, I'm sure everyone knows this, but some community guidelines. We are happy if you are here. Obviously, try and arrive on time, but if you are late or have technical issues, I understand, especially as it's online, and please join in the conversation as you are able to. Mute yourself when you are not talking, but please remember to unmute yourself when you do want to talk. We want to be able to hear everyone. Please complete the pre-session self-paced interactive slides. Those are on Facebook, they're on the Google Classroom, and they're emailed out. And the post-session feedback form, which I will include in the chat box at the end of this class, and I will email out as well. This will help us revise and develop the course content and make it better. If you have questions or technical issues during the session, please send a message in the chat box indicating so, or email us at info@hettgroup.com. Okay, so my name is Lisa Vance. You can see my picture there. I previously have worked as an English teacher, as an environmental education teacher or educator, and I have done some teacher training before. I will be leading this training. Kathleen is my co-host and she designs all the slides. Kathleen, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hello, my name is Kathleen Griley, and yes, I helped Lisa create all of the self-paced slides and the slides that we use during these presentations. And my apologies for being late this morning, for me this morning.
Okay, how well do you understand primary sources? So how well do you understand what a primary source is and how it's used? So not at all, a little bit more, a little bit more, somewhat, quite well, or extremely well. So not at all, extremely well. Can you show me? I'd prefer if you turn your camera on and you can show me with your fingers. If not, you can type it in the chat box. So on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. How many fingers? How well do you understand? I see some 2s, some 3s. Okay, cool, very cool. So what does the word primary mean? You can either tell me or type in the chat box.
It means original sources, original.
Yes, definitely. It means like original, first, that type of thing. Okay. Oh no. Kathleen, can you see what it says in the chat box for me? Sometimes it gets stuck when I'm in presentation mode.
Original document.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, that's like primary means first or original. And we're talking about original documents when we're talking about primary sources.
It also says instinct ones.
Instinct, okay.
And origin.
Origin, yeah, I would say origin. Instinct, I'm not really sure, maybe. primary. Instinct would be more like, what would be the word? Oh, I can't remember.
And the was main.
Sorry?
Also main.
Main? Yeah, primary sometimes means main as well. Yes, definitely. Okay. So we kind of discussed it a little bit, but then what is a primary source? So some people kind of included it in their.
It's the original and real source.
Yeah, the original resource that you're using. So someone said original document. So that fits as well. So that's a primary source. So it was made by someone with firsthand knowledge. So they were there, maybe they saw it, they observed it, they collected the data, something like that. It really depends on what the source is, but they have firsthand knowledge. They were very close to the event and they like witnessed what happened. So that's a primary source. What are some examples of primary sources?
Some WHO data.
Yeah, data.
WHO data and some of the documents like water resources. WHO gives some of the permissible level, how that can be used for drinking water or for irrigation. They set out some of the data.
Definitely.
Like these are primary source.
Yeah, definitely. Like the primary, like your original data that has been collected is a primary source. Yeah, speech of a famous person, diary, speech, manuscript. So it really depends also what, so I know most of you are, well, I think all of you are teachers. So it also depends what discipline that you are in, what your primary sources might be. So social sciences would be more likely to use things like a diary, a speech, a manuscript, and then maybe some survey data as well. While in the sciences, the natural sciences, it might be an experiment or it might still be survey data. Like it depends kind of what field that you're looking at, what the primary source of data is. So we have diaries and letters. Again, those would probably be more social sciences, maybe history. Oh, notes on an experiment. So again, like that might be more natural sciences. Quotes from a witness, that might be more social sciences. Autobiographies might be a little bit closer to the social sciences. Photographs and artwork, again, is usually social sciences. Original research can be both. Could be your research could be natural sciences or it could be social sciences. And data and survey results, same thing. It could be social sciences or the natural sciences. Kathleen, sorry again, can you read out the chat box? It's being a little sticky today.
Yes, I would be happy to. They said diaries and interview.
Yes, definitely. So yeah, an interview, that talking to that person would be a primary source of data. How are primary sources part of research?
Primary sources are very important. There is empirical data for the research.
Definitely. Most research is based on the data, primary sources. Anyone else have anything to add? So empirical, oh, to write results and discussion? Yes, yeah. They can give the previous information. Yeah, so empirical research is a primary source. Most research that you will do will be based on primary sources. I'm trying to think. Yeah, like most research that you do, I think there might be a few instances where you do research that isn't, but for the most part, like empirical research is a primary source. So when you are doing research, when you are writing your literature review, you might be looking at other people's primary sources. You might be doing both because you might be looking at their discussion section. And then you might be summarizing what's in their discussion section, but you'd be looking at their primary data as well. So someone uses primary sources in their research, and then you look at their data and what they collected as far as a primary source. And also when you are doing your own research, you are writing a primary account of what happened in your own research. So you're collecting your own primary data. Okay, so we are going to have a poll. So please identify the source as primary or not. Oh, and I just wanted to explain something. Sometimes a source can be both, not for our poll, we're not going to get there, but sometimes a source can be both primary and secondary. So an example would be a science textbook. Usually a science textbook would be a secondary resource, or secondary source, sorry. But if you are analyzing about textbooks in science and you're analyzing and looking at 10 different textbooks and then creating new data from those 10 textbooks, those textbooks would then be a primary source. So sometimes there are times where something could be primary or secondary. Normally it's secondary because it's summarizing other information, but if you're analyzing, maybe it's called content analysis, and that's when you analyze like the words in a textbook, and that can then be a primary source itself. And I don't mean to confuse people because that might confuse people, but yeah, it can be primary or secondary in certain instances. Okay, let's do a poll. Let me just go to the poll. So please let me know if this is a primary source or not a primary source. So a newspaper article written by a journalist who attended the event. So I'll just give you 30 more seconds to answer. Okay. So I would say this is a primary source. The newspaper or the journalist was there. He saw the event. He saw what happened. So it is a primary source. He was kind of the first, he was there. He actually saw it. Okay, next one. A summary of another author's work. Is that primary or secondary, or not a primary source? Oh, I think everyone answered already. That one's pretty easy. Not a primary source. Good. So it is summary of another author's work. Good. So the person who is summarizing was not there. They did not see the information. They're removed from it. Okay, next one. Survey results from a group of students. Is that primary or not a primary source?
Yeah, I can see the pools in my screen. I
Oh,
can see the pools. Yeah.
I'm not sure. Just 1 second, I'll try and exit out and then, I don't know. I'll end it for now. Okay. So definitely that is a primary source. Let me just see. Let me exit out of the poll and exit out. Sometimes things just get kind of a little like I notice sometimes things just don't work perfectly in Zoom. It's a little frustrating. Like my chat box won't open sometimes and it just happens.
Yes, yes.
I don't know what to do always about it. Okay.
Because internet connection, maybe sometimes cause of internet connection.
Yeah, I think sometimes because the internet, I think sometimes there's just issues with Zoom. I think it's just the app as well. I've had weird things happen where people can't get their sound to work and then you just have to exit, re-enter, and it works. So it's sometimes just weird things. Relaunch poll. Oops, sorry, I clicked too many.
Yes, yes.
A photograph of
Now,
the experiment.
now I got.
Can you see it?
Yeah, I see.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, sometimes you just have to exit and re-enter. Just wait a few more seconds. Okay. So I would say it's a primary source because it's the person seeing it directly and then taking a photo of it and then using that photo. So it's an original kind of thing. An example of this is actually during my bachelor's, I used collection of photos for my thesis for my bachelor's. So my bachelor's was actually on volunteer tourism, And so I looked at pictures on volunteer tourism websites. So I used their photographs as a primary source of data of. So that's kind of how you can use them. You can use the photos and then analyze the photos as primary sources. Okay, a paraphrase of an article you read. Is that a primary source or not a primary source? Okay. I think I'll end it there. So good. It is not a primary source. It's a paraphrase an article you read. It's yeah. Good. Excellent job. Okay. Census results. Is this an example of a primary source or not? Okay. Yes, it is a primary source. So you've collected that information directly from the census. Okay, excellent. So let's move on to the second activity. So individually, you will use Pear Deck to respond to questions about primary sources and your own experiences. You will then have a few minutes to share your ideas with a small group, and then we can discuss as a whole. Oh. Now I just have to get out. There we go. So I'm going to put this in the chat box. You have about 10 minutes. Just 1 second, my chat box. Oh, there we go. Now it's working. You have about 10 minutes to work on this by yourself. I'll share my screen and show you again. If everyone finishes before that, we can end it before that. Okay. So have you ever collected data from a primary source? Yes or no? What was the primary source that you collected from? So where did you
Most of them.
Oh, so you can answer this yourself. I'm just going to go through this. And how did you use the data collected? So those 3 questions. So you can answer those yourself. You can type in the chat box, or it's not in this box here. And the Pear Deck link is in the chat box if you want to click on it, and you have 5 to 10 minutes to work on it. So if you have any questions, please you can type them in the chat box or you can ask. Okay. Kathleen, would you like to turn the music on? Okay, Kathleen, can you please stop sharing? Awesome, thank you very much. Okay, so we're going to have you work in breakout rooms just for 5 minutes. And I would like you just to discuss the questions that you answered. So if you've done primary, what are the questions again? Have you ever collected data from a primary source? What was the primary source? And how did you use the data that you collected? So in groups, I would like you to discuss your answers with everyone else in your group. So I'm going to put everyone in breakout rooms. I'll just do 2, just for 2 minutes. Oh, so maybe I'll do 3, actually. There's been more people that have joined. Oops. Okay. You can look at some of the answers a little bit. This is from the Burmese one and the English one. I have the same information. So, have you ever collected data from a primary source? So I don't know if collecting the data from the student is primary source or not. If it is, I would say I've done yes. So collecting data directly from the students, that data would be a primary source, definitely. Yes, I use sometimes. I think that some original data is not reliable to the current situation. Our environment is always changing and some primary data is not suitable for us. Definitely. Just because it's primary data does not mean that it is always correct for the situation that you're looking at now. Especially say if it was data collected, say 5 years ago or 10 years ago, it was primary data at that time. That does not mean it's reliable or current for this situation now. But yeah, so I kind of see those as two different things. So it can be primary data, but that does not mean it's correct or correct to the current situation. But it's primary data for that time period or for that situation when you collected it. And primary data can have mistakes in it. Like any data, you can make mistakes or have mistakes in it. No, I haven't. Sure. Yes, I have. Yes. I collect the data before doing or writing research paper and thesis. Yeah, definitely. When I wrote my thesis, I have to collect the data. Definitely. Some data are primary source and some are secondary. Yeah. Yes, I have. Yes, I collect it. Yes. What was the primary source? World Health Organization, EPA, or scientific theory. When it's collected, it is, yes. So if they're collecting information, if it's just like a summary of the information, like the World Health Organization might just have a summary on their website, then that would be secondary. But if they're collecting data as part of the, or if you collected data as part of the World Health Organization, that would be primary, definitely. The primary source is that from own experience of a person or facts being collected by a researcher. Definitely. Original theory. Yeah, original. I wouldn't really say, yeah, if they write down the theory and then that original document would be an original source, yes. A questionnaire, interview, diary, speeches, manuscripts, letters, interviews, records, autobiographies, reports, case studies. Good. That was created at the time under study. Yes, definitely. A lot of these are more geared to the social sciences, because in the social sciences, I would say there's a larger variety of information and primary sources that you can use compared to the natural sciences, where it's usually only based on experiments and maybe a little bit on surveys and maybe interviews, not normally. But the natural sciences is, if you work in the natural sciences, it's based more on experiments, and you might do a little bit of questionnaires or surveys on the side. Yeah, directly experiences something. Yeah, interviews, video recordings. Yeah, the original work of researcher, experiment, diary, document, manuscript, or data collection at the time under study. Yeah. Results from other research papers, data in countries that deal with our research. Yeah, so like, yeah, primary research from those countries, original sources, initial sources, books. So I would say not books. Books are a secondary source because they're analyzing the primary source. Websites usually as well are analyzing or summarizing primary sources. So they are secondary sources. We'll get more into that next week. The first-hand information from a particular event, student-teacher surveys, yeah. Diaries, interviews, reports, experiments, the immediate facts or data from your collection of surveys, the book written by the researcher about her project and methodologies. Yeah, it depends. Yeah, if it's by the researcher and it's explaining or if it's showing their data, I would say that's a primary source. A lot of times books are secondary because they're written by someone else. The data but not always. It really depends. So again, if it's researcher, then it's primary. If it was by someone else, it would be secondary. Data from own efforts. Yeah, interviewing questionnaires from people, theories, data collected from research papers. I would say it's probably just the language, but yeah, the data collected in the research paper would be a primary source. You could then maybe analyze other research papers and then use them as primary sources, but if you're using the research paper, then you're turning it into a secondary source for your own information. Good. By analyzing, comparing the theoretical result or WHO data, yes, definitely. Analyze data, made data interpretations, discussed results, findings, definitely. Analyze the data to find the results. Use the data collecting from the students by doing surveys to change my teaching styles to meet their needs. Yeah, definitely. So sometimes like data you can collect, like we're looking at research writing. So usually if you're looking at research writing, you're looking at how you can write it up in the discussion section, in the results section, in the conclusion, but then you can actually use the information that you've collected for yourself to improve, to choose participants, to show people how to choose these participants. So again, you're using the information. Applied in my teaching and in my research paper. So yeah, both. You can use it for both. I mean, that's why we're doing that's why we're doing research, right? Or people are doing research. It's to be able to improve the world and apply the knowledge, either theoretically or actually like physically apply it. To make a research for social sciences, to write results, discussion, to review with previous results. Good. I explain my data, how is effective or not to the local community. To show evidence in research, making notes, summarizing the events, and extracting main points. Good. To show evidence. I apply the data that I collected in my research paper in teaching. Good. by using in the research paper or teaching, to write results and discussion, to review the previous studies. Yes, you might also compare it to previous studies. Is your data the same or is it different from previous studies? Why is that? For writing the literature review, especially for the research paper, by direct quotation and paraphrasing. So yeah, that would be using someone else's primary sources and then using those primary sources in your literature review. But it wouldn't be your own data in your literature review. To offer the readers much of the information about something. To analyze, good. To compare, to make comparative studies between collected data and results from my research work. Yeah. By comparing, by describing the results in the literature review. Again, it would be someone else's primary sources you would then use in your literature review, but your own primary sources would not show up in your literature review because your own would be done after the literature review. Collect, process, analyze, make decisions. Yeah, summarize the primary source. Yeah, so maybe you want to summarize the primary source and what the information was found, or calculate the results. You might have already done that, but yeah, you first have to, once you collect the information, you then have to calculate it, and then you have to use the information or analyze the information. Let's go back. Yeah. Okay, so just a review question. In your own words, what is a primary source? You can either type it in the chat box or tell me. So just a review, what is it? Make sure to unmute yourself if you are going to talk. Yeah, so it's experimental data, good, that's an example, good. So if anyone wants to summarize what it is. Anyone else? The idea and perspective found by the writer on their own way. Good, the first work you have done. First data. Good, excellent. Okay, how well do you understand primary sources now? Oh, there's one more comment. Let me just check. It is kind of data or source that haven't changed anything. Trying to think. I would say that it hasn't been maybe analyzed and used in other sources, like used further on. It's the first one. So how well do you understand primary sources? Not at all, a little bit more, somewhat, quite well, or extremely well. So on the count of 3, can you either show me with your fingers or you can type it in the chat box. You can write like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. So how many fingers? 3, 4, 4, 4. Okay, and let's see if there's any in the chat box. Somewhat. Okay, good. Okay, thank you very much for joining me here today. I will include the link for the course feedback form. 2 seconds. I'll pull that up now. Thank you for joining. There's a feedback form. I will also be emailing it out with an invitation to join the Google Classroom. So I keep all the slides, all the videos, and all the Pear Decks in the Google Classroom. The only issue is, it's not an issue for this class. So next week, we're going to go a little bit more in depth, and we are going to be looking at secondary sources. And the syllabus, yeah. Thank you. Thank you for joining.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And all of our resources are listed here. So when I post the slides, you can also visit these websites if you would like more information. So I'll just wait for the next few minutes if anyone has any questions. And other than that, thank you and bye-bye.
Fine. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you. See
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.